Welcome back. Welcome back. Tuesday show. And, man, some of you guys, you really enjoyed that trip down the rabbit hole with us yesterday. Yeah, Scotty.
I will say, even though we were in the rabbit hole, I did notice that, like, yesterday evening, a lot of people started covering the story. They were having Julie Brown on and everything else like that, and they were getting not as deep as we went.
Right.
Because, they have big, lawyers behind them telling them, be careful with that. We don't have that. We just kind of, we just go guns a-blazing and see what happens.
Sometimes allegedly doesn't cover it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we went deep. We went deep about Tova Noel, her payments, when they started, when they ended, how much they were, inmate testimony that was buried until the Epstein files came out. Yeah, the Epstein files. A lot of interesting stuff is getting uncovered. The 4chan post 38 minutes before the New York Times went with it. A user went on 4chan saying, hey guys, Epstein's dead. Screenshots of it talking about intubated, talking about, using medical jargon, responding to a few questions, and then gone. Like a fart in the wind. And the DOJ and the FBI absolutely are just at a loss. They exhausted every effort to try to track down this person. And although they could, look, again, you go and you put something anti-ICE on Facebook, they'll be at your doorstep in 3 minutes. But you reveal that Epstein died 38 minutes before the whole rest of the world knows. We don't know nothing about nothing. Okay, fine. Let's give that time to mature and foment, right? Let's give that time. But a lot of stuff came out in the Epstein files, stuff that we definitely wanted to get into because we felt it was impactful. And, based on the story by Roger Sullenberger and then the subsequent investigation out of NPR and the details of these FBI investigations and interviews that have been released, I am willing to shift my posture on Don and the files from, hey guys, let's be clear, no credible evidence, only tips, right? I was even saying it too for a long time. Hey, let's keep it cool with the Don did this for sure talk. Now I'm shifting my posture. I absolutely am comfortable going ahead and saying on this show with the recording equipment working that I think Don definitely abused minors, definitely knew about Jeffrey's sex trafficking, definitely took part in it, and I definitely believe the account given by the woman who was interviewed by the FBI. We're talking about 2 detrimental interviews, FBI interviews, that were covered up by Pam Bondi. Completely missing. NPR did that great reporting. Hey, the serial numbers for these pages are here, but the pages themselves are missing. The FBI goes on to say, and the DOJ says, oh, well, those were duplicates and we misfiled some stuff. Sorry, oops, our bad. And then they released more stuff. Well, there's new details on what they released. The previous reporting cited FBI notes and investigatory material hinting towards some of the things this woman had said in the interviews with the FBI. There were decent details about the first interview. And then it was hinted at that there was a follow-up interview. Well, there was actually 3 follow-up interviews, and all 3 of those interviews had been buried by Pam Bondi. Buried, previous to the NPR reporting, previous to Roger Sullenberger getting a hold of those FBI notes regarding this woman's plight. 3 interviews had already been completely buried. Pam Bondi. Well, Pam Bondi's involvement in this cover-up is undeniable, and people are seeing it for exactly what it is. Shreve the Nader has now introduced 3 articles of impeachment for Pam Bondi. That's right. Now, it's a long shot. He did this before with Pete Hegseth. The Pete Hegseth impeachment articles, it gained not only very little traction with the Republicans, it gained very little traction with the Democrats as well. And this one doesn't look like it has much of a shot, but he's doing it. He's doing it. The articles include obstruction of Congress, dereliction of duty, and obstruction of justice, along with weaponizing and politicizing the DOJ. Those are the 3 articles introduced by Shri Thanator. That's, a little more spectacular, and it's more of an empty gesture. What's not empty, what's not hollow, what is actual and not some long shot is that the Oversight Committee has begun an investigation into Pam Bondi, and they have subpoenaed her. And we're talking a bipartisan vote in the Oversight Committee to subpoena Pam Bondi. Bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats. So, the articles, jumping the gun. Purely symbolic. The investigation, let's let that play out. That's real. That's real. That's substantive. Is that also a gesture, ultimately? We'll see. Let the investigation play out. Remember, this doesn't necessarily have to be it doesn't have to be an indictment or an investigation or, accusations related directly to Trump. This can be isolated and become a Pam problem. If Republicans can walk that line between not rebuking Trump, not admonishing Trump and all things Trump and Trumpism as a whole, if they can separate it and just go hard at Pam's culpability solely, Republicans could get away with getting Pam impeached. Possibly. Depends on what the investigation uncovers. The bipartisan investigation. Also, Lindsay Halligan, former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Just a loser. If there ever was one out of this administration. I mean, there's a lot of losers right now. Kristi Noem, Tulsi Gabbard. But is Lindsay the biggest hand-picked loser? After they forced out Eric Siebert, when Eric Siebert was like, yeah, this Comey investigation, this Letitia James indictment you want me to get, I'm not doing it. Or I can't do it. Didn't matter. He's out. Lindsay's in. She goes hard at Trump's wishes of getting an indictment on his political enemies, no matter how hollow they are, no matter how invalid or unconstitutional they may be. And that's just what she did. And she got, stiff-armed is putting it lightly. I mean, the motions to dismiss were based around Lindsay's involvement, not to mention the weaponization of the DOJ pursuing these indictments. All of it got defeated by magistrate judges and grand juries alike. Grand juries, after the 2 magistrate judges, Fitzpatrick and the other one, brought up the myriad of problems with these indictments and dismissed both of them. Grand juries after the fact refused to indict. Just a loser if there ever was one, Lindsay Halligan. Well, there's a nonprofit organization called Campaign for Accountability, and they have been hounding Lindsay, and they have been collecting evidence and building a little bit of a case so they could formally file complaints in Virginia and Florida, where she is a lawyer, right? Well, when they built all this case, all this evidence against Lindsay. They filed their complaints to Florida and Virginia. And you know what they got back from Florida? Don't worry about it. We've already started an investigation. Lindsay's going to be disbarred. That's what you get for following Trump's orders. Prosecutors and the DOJ, you get disbarred. You do his bidding, you get disbarred.
Well, I hate to give a womp 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 here, but unfortunately the Florida bar has rescinded that investigation.
Stop it.
And they've come out saying that it was an erroneous earlier statement.
Oh.
And there is no open investigation anymore. If there ever was, into her.
I wish I had gone to you 30 seconds earlier. I didn't see it. Well, look at that. So brand new reporting. Thank you, Scotty, for doing the digging on that. So looks like they dropped it. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. But she was on their radar. We'll see what happens in Virginia. Okay, so that's just Florida. But the files have been, the complaints have been filed in Virginia as well. So we'll see what happens in Virginia. But she's under investigation. We'll see what this We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what this credibility nonprofit can get done. So, now we've told you that Pam's been subpoenaed and there's an investigation in the oversight committee. How bad is it? How bad did this cover-up get? How bad are these 3 interviews that I mentioned in conjunction with the NPR investigation and some of the other Democratic lawmakers going down to the unredacted files and looking for these details themselves and coming back and saying, this is gone. All this is gone. Well, it's back. They said duplicates. They said mistakes were made. But the details are back, and they are bad for Don.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
Yeah, I'm willing to shift my position. Don did this. Don did this. These details are too much, and there's too much corroboration with what this woman has said. You know, just a quick recap. This young woman, there was a FBI tip that came in about a young woman who was between the ages of 13 and 15 in the 1980s that was groomed and then sexually abused by Epstein. The FBI took that tip and they ran with it, and they were able to track the young woman down. And they conducted interviews in 2019. They conducted an initial interview with this young woman, an initial interview. That was in Seattle, Washington, where she had relocated to from South Carolina. In the FBI reports, they mentioned, they hinted to and mentioned and pointed to some of the things that she had said in the subsequent interviews, in the following interviews. They were in the reports, but the interviews themselves were missing. Now, they have been released. Pam says, whoops, they were mislabeled as duplicates, but here they are. Now I see why she went about burying this. It is bad. It is bad, and the details this young woman gives were easily found to be true with not a total, not a big amount of effort and digging. A lot of the details she gave were corroborated after the fact, which is why they had 4 interviews. The FBI doesn't bring you back 3 more times if you're full of crap, or if they think you're lying, or they think you don't actually know anything. Bottom line, what were in those interviews? Well, I've got them right here. And I'm not going to give you the whole damn interview, but I'm going to give you the bad stuff. Some of this was hinted to in the FBI notes regarding these interviews, but the context here is pretty damning. The second interview they had. The second interview. All right, we talked about the first interview in Seattle. She gave details. The FBI said, we're going to bring you back. The second interview. Okay. She said that Epstein drove her personally from South Carolina to New Jersey and New York. They hit both places. When she was either 13, 14, or 15, she can't quite remember exactly. She said, quote, she was introduced to someone with money. That money was Donald Trump. She said, I remember being in a very big building with huge rooms, and she met Trump. Epstein introduced her. She met Trump. And Trump immediately said, I don't really like this one too much. She's a boy girl or a tomboy. So she said she was in a room with Trump and Epstein after Trump had made these comments and a few other people. And then those few other people and Epstein conveniently left the room. Then Trump said, oh God. Then Trump said to her, let me teach you how little girls are supposed to be. He then unzipped his pants, forced her head towards his penis. She said she immediately bit him and Trump struck her. She told the FBI agents she bit him because she had overwhelming disgust. She was just so disgusted in the moment, it was her natural reaction. I can understand that. Okay. That interview went on. She was brought back for a third interview. In that third interview, she wanted to expound on the encounter with Trump. They wanted her to expound on it. She was willing to expound on it. She said she wanted to clarify how Trump reacted to her biting him. She explained that Trump then pulled her hair back and he punched her in the side of the head. After that encounter, she said that Epstein blackmailed her mother by saying he had explicit photographs of her daughter and that her mother later went to prison for embezzling money from her job in an effort to purchase the photos from Epstein. So, after this encounter and further abuse by Epstein, they wanted to make sure she didn't go and say anything to anybody. And they began embezzling or blackmailing her mother. All right. Now, she also mentioned at that meeting, she mentioned she met a man named Jim Atkins. Jim Atkins. That was somebody else who was mentioned. And the Miami Herald went about looking for this Jim Atkins. There was a few other names she mentioned. Some of the names she mentioned turned out to be accurate, like Jim. So that was another detail she gave in the third interview. She named some names. In the fourth interview, oh, I'm sorry. Also in the third interview, and this is very important. Also in the third interview. And this goes straight to the Republican and the conservative talking point of, if this woman's account was true, why wasn't there any charges? Why wasn't there any investigation? Okay. This speaks directly to that, because this story is picking up a little traction in right-wing circles and podcasters and talking heads. It is picking up a little traction. They're a little worried about this. And so they're starting to develop talking points around it, and that's the talking point. Why weren't there any charges? Why didn't she charge him? Well, at the end of the third interview, she detailed how she and her mother had received numerous death threats and had twice been run off the road. She felt she was being threatened by Epstein and Trump. She said the callers told her, "We know where you're at. You need to keep your mouth shut." The things she was telling them were credible enough for them to call her in for a fourth interview. In that fourth interview, she said, "This will be our last interview. And no, I don't want to charge him. I want it to end right here with you." She said she felt, what's the point? The assaults had taken place so long ago. She said nothing could be done now. The threats worked. That's why she didn't press charges. That's why they didn't continue the interviews and the investigation. She stopped cooperating after providing all of this factual-based testimony and accounts of her story. That is why. That's why. She didn't want to be killed. Didn't want to be killed. Now, Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, in response to this story out of the Miami Herald, she released a statement to them personally. She said, "As we have said countless times, President Trump has been totally exonerated by the release of the Epstein files." She said the woman's statements were backed by zero credible evidence and a sadly disturbed woman who has an extensive criminal history. Okay, you can say that, but there's too much credible accounts from this woman for this to just be dismissed. The credibility of what she told the FBI agents is pretty undeniable at this point. And that is why I'm so comfortable switching my stance on this. And that is why they are worried about it. She said the Ohio businessman was one of her abusers, describing the man as having gray hair, big ears, and she believed he was affiliated with a Cincinnati-based college. Well, the the Post, the Washington Post, the Courier, and others, they found that Ohio businessman and found he was a member of the board on a college that she described. She mentioned Epstein took her to concerts. She mentioned one Rick James concert in particular in Savannah, and they did the digging. Miami Herald did the digging, and yes, the time she had mentioned Epstein took her to a Rick James concert, there was a concert in Rick James concert in Savannah at that time at that place. He frequently toured that area, completely corroborated. Completely. And as far as the embezzlement, the mother engaged in to try to buy the photos, the nude photos of her daughter, well, it turns out the Miami Herald did the digging on that as well, and she ended up in a federal prison right there near Columbia, South Carolina, and it was confirmed by the court documents and the business itself that she had tried to embezzle the exact amount that she was being blackmailed for these photos. All the records line up. Everything she said lined up. All the dates lined up. All the people lined up. All the places lined up. Everything she said was credible. The FBI does not bring you back for 4 interviews if it's not credible. And I didn't even mention the other witness testimony that they buried, because that witness testimony about meeting Trump and Epstein together in a sex trafficking operation gathering, that witness was so damn credible that she was one of the key witnesses in the charges against Ghislaine and the convictions. That was one of the key witnesses to getting Ghislaine convicted. That's how credible that witness was. Both of these witness accounts were buried by Pam. Buried. Had it not been for Roger Sullenberger and NPR and Miami Herald, they would be buried today. So they're looking to impeach Pam.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things, pushing back, speaking up, and holding the line.
Okay. We're going to shift gears. Back to Iran. Iran. I'd done so well over the last few days. I'd done so well. Okay. Don, how do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about your decision-making, Don?
But, you know, they've said this about a lot of things. No other president could do some of this shit I'm doing. No other president. The things I'm doing, nobody else was going to do it. They say it all the time, sir, could you do this? You're the only one can do it. But we got...
Who is they? And you guys are still comfortable plopping your kid down for an address by the president, right? When the president speaks, you're comfortable going and gathering the family, including your young ones, to hear this man speak, right? As he is normalizing cussing from the Oval Office. Awesome. Among all the other things he's normalizing that as well. Nobody can do the things you do. That's right, Don. One thing he's done is he's drawn over 20 different countries into his conflict. No, his war. Pete told us it's war. Engagement? Is it engagement? Because Mike Johnson said it's an engagement. Rubio said it, but Rubio said it's a war. I'm having a hard time keeping it straight. You know, there's about 195 countries in the world. With over 20 countries involved now in our engagement, that's 5% of all the countries in the world are now engaged in this war. What percentage does that have to get to before this is a world engagement? Yeah, right. Okay, so right now it's a world kerfuffle. Are we good with that? It's a world kerfuffle. Get maybe 10 or 20 more countries involved, it'll be what, a shindig? I feel like 20 30 shindig, 40, 50 is a dust up. At what point is it a war? Yeah, well, at what point? I mean, we got to have more disagreements, right? Disagreements are stronger than. Look, a ton of countries are drawn in. U.S., Iran, Israel, obviously. Allies in the region: Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Iraq, right? Struck by the Iranian retaliation. Lebanon. Now Israeli boots on the ground fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon. They're there. They're in the country. 500,000 people have been displaced in the last week of fighting there. Wonderful. Military installations in Cyprus, which is a NATO nation, that have been hit. Or I'm sorry, an EU. I'm sorry, Cyprus is in the EU. That got struck. That drug in France, UK, Germany, some others. Logistics is being provided. Other countries are getting involved with logistics and intelligence. Turkey, Ukraine, South Korea sending THAADs up. Russia's, supplying drones and supplying satellite-backed intelligence to the Iranians. Just everybody's getting drawn in. Everybody's getting drawn in. France is sending a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to the eastern Mediterranean to join British warships around Cyprus. Everybody's getting drawn in. Even Australia. Australia said Monday that it's going to send missiles and radar plane help to the UAE and a couple other Gulf nations. I told you, Russia's involvement. I told you about Russia's involvement. One thing in that's very interesting, and we still have to put a pin in, there's a question mark surrounding China, right? Question mark surrounding China. Now, Trump is going to go to China in a couple weeks. He's going to go there and he's going to talk with the Chinese leadership. All right. But here's the thing. China is facing billions of dollars of economic pressure. Okay. They've been calling for a ceasefire this entire time. The Strait of Hormuz is a huge problem. That being closed and 20% of the global oil market going through there stopped. That's a huge problem for China. 40% of their oil imports come through the Strait of Hormuz. Right? Sending them to other places to get their oil, like Russia. Okay, like Russia. Now, there are other effects other than just other countries getting involved. There are direct effects to Trump's agenda around this. Things that are important to Trump, things that he has touted, have all been kiboshed because of this. He just can't get out of his way. The Ukrainian U.S.-backed peace talks that were supposed to take place in Abu Dhabi, those aren't happening, right? Obviously, he can forget that little peace prize campaign. I mean, unless he takes more peace prizes from other people, he's not going to get one himself, okay? Abu Dhabi peace talks, they're put on hold, okay? His board of peace, the whole reason the Board of Peace was formed was to rebuild Gaza and stabilize Gaza. $7 billion, redirected from the Board of Peace to the Gaza redevelopment plan that has been completely put on hold. Completely put on hold. The whole region is scrambling to defend against Iranian missiles. You can't rebuild when stuff is still getting blown up. And then there's Taiwan. Oh, yeah, man. Then there's Taiwan. Not only have we spent decades building up anti-air defenses in Taiwan in hopes to deter a China invasion of Taiwan, which we've all been looking at over the horizon. Well, we're now starting to draw those anti-missile and anti-drone defenses away from Taiwan, away from South Korea. Every missile that we shoot against Iranian Shahed drones makes Taiwan a little more vulnerable. Everyone that gets shot and needs to be resupplied from some other region like Taiwan, it makes them unsafe. China at any point could pull the trigger on that. Any point. And considering what Russia and the U.S. have been doing lately, how much pushback will there really be? How much can we push back? How much will we at that time be willing to push back? God, if this doesn't cause World War III, that could. That could. These munitions, man. This is becoming a big, big problem for the administration on multiple levels. Reporting's now coming out about a meeting that happened 7 months ago with the Ukrainians. That's right. We had a meeting with the Ukrainians 7 months ago. You see, the Ukrainians are the world's most experienced country in shooting down Shahed drones. Anti-drone technology. They are now, after 4 years of being tested by fire, they are now the world's authority in anti-drone technology. Okay? Anti-drone. That's their deal. In comparison, not only has the U.S. been lagging behind Chinese, Russian, Iranian, Ukrainian anti-drone technology, we're behind. We also don't have enough. Our technology is behind and lagging, and we don't have enough of it. The Ukrainians knew this, so they came to see us 7 months ago. And they laid out a PowerPoint for Trump and his advisors. They made a PowerPoint. And the point of the PowerPoint was Iran is improving their Shahed drones. You need a way to assert your anti-drone dominance. We could make you, the U.S., the world leader in anti-drone technology. They were willing to share their technology with us, and they were willing to go a step further. In that meeting, they laid out a plan, and they said, look, we have the capabilities, we have the manufacturing capabilities and the tech to manufacture tens of thousands of anti-Shahed drone interceptors per month for you. We just lack the money. We have the infrastructure, the know-how, we're ready to go, but we need an investor. If you, the U.S., invests in our anti-Shahed drone technology, you give us the money to get this off the ground, we will provide to you the world's best anti-drone interceptors. This is a meeting 7 months ago. They also said, we will also, as part of this deal, not only will we provide you with these anti-drone interceptors once they're manufactured, we will buy more of your weaponry to defend against the Russians. So you don't have to act like you're giving us any kind of handout. You can make money off the anti-drone interceptors market, which not only would they provide the U.S. with these anti-drone interceptors, but they could sell it globally. Not only would you get a cut of the profits, but we'll buy more of your weaponry. And it doesn't look like you're just handing us cash, and you'll give us the legs to keep stiff-arming Russia. That was the deal the Ukrainians came to Trump with. After the meeting, 7 months ago, Trump said, it's interesting. We're going to have our guys look into that. According to administration officials, it was kind of a non-starter. There was talk of Zelensky being a self-promoter, a con man, and that Zelensky did not command enough global respect to be seen as the world's innovator in anti-drone interceptors and create a viable market for their product. Didn't have enough respect for them. So they said no. They said no. Okay. Now, this story started leaking, and White House spokesman Anna Kelly had something to say about it. She said this. She said, this characterization made by these cowardly unnamed sources is not accurate and proves that they are simply outside looking in. Pete Hegseth and the armed forces did an incredible job planning for all possible responses by the Iranian regime, and the undisputed success of Operation Epic Fury speaks for itself. She went on to say, Iranian retaliatory strikes are down 90% because their ballistic missile capabilities are being totally demolished. Go tell that to the victims' families. Go tell that to the families of the 7 deceased U.S. soldiers. Go tell them, well, I know your son died or I know your daughter died, but we're intercepting 90% of Iranian missiles and drones. You should be happy. You should be happy. Now, I want to be fair. When the Ukrainians offered this deal, we did have our new anti-drone interceptor technology coming out. It was called MEROPS. MEROPS. And MEROPS has been deployed in the field. Well, a couple unnamed U.S. officials had a couple things to say about MEROPS, our anti-drone technology. One said, the response has been disappointing. Not getting there. The Iranians and the Russians and their satellite intelligence is trumping your MEROPS. Another unnamed official said the Ukrainian drones would have helped if deployed. If we could have gotten our hands on those Ukrainian anti-drone interceptors, well, yeah, that might have helped.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things, pushing back, speaking up, and holding the line.
Okay, now, the part you're already mad about. You connected the dots very quickly. Okay, Brett, you're telling me that if we had okayed that deal with the Ukrainians, we would have made money. We would have been able to sell more of our military hardware to them, which would have helped them stave off Russia. And we would already, in this conflict right now with Iran, we would already have a deep stockpile of the world's most technologically advanced anti-drone interceptors. Okay, and look, the reporting out of Axios on this has been absolutely spectacular, by the way. I mean, Axios, man, every time. All right, yes, you are right. If we had gone with that deal, we could have possibly spared 7 American soldiers' lives and what is up to about 40 civilian lives in the region. People who were killed in our allies' borders by Iranian strikes. We would have no supply problem, and we would have the best technology. If they'd just gone with this deal, we could have saved lives. That should make you angry. But what I'm going to detail next is going to be the least shocking thing you've heard, and it will make you absolutely furious. Because I'm trying to piece together why they didn't go with that deal. I'm trying to piece it together. Why wouldn't they? Okay, they've got their own anti-drone technology, right? They want to roll that out. Okay, it's also not very bigly and strongly to admit to the world that Ukraine has better technology than you do. And I could see Don taking the posture of simply, we don't buy from you, you buy from us. That tracks, right? That's along Don's MO. I mean, that tracks with his behavior and things he says. Not enough. We're putting it together. We're putting it together. Don Jr. announced that he has a new business venture on the heels of a merger, and they have signed a deal with the Pentagon to provide anti-drone technology based on the Ukrainian design. Oh, God. Oh, my God. Wait a second. 7 months ago, the Ukrainians come to us. They tell us We want to make a deal with you to provide you with the best anti-drone technology. Trump says no. And then right on the heels of that meeting, Trump's sons announce a merger between Arias Greenway Holdings and Power Us. Power Us is a drone manufacturing company. Arias Greenway Holdings, well, their main investors are American Ventures, Trump family-owned venture firm, Unusual Machines, which is a drone component manufacturer, and Dominari Securities, a Trump Jr., a Don and Eric company. Dominari Securities. Unusual Machines, Trump Jr. is a shareholder, sits as a board member. American Ventures, Trump owned. Dominari Securities, Don Jr. and Eric owned. They're all wrapped up, they're all investors in various Greenway holdings. Various and Powerus merge. And then a few months after the merger, they announce a brand spanking new contract with the Pentagon to provide exactly what the Ukrainians offered months prior. Oh, God. Could it be as simple as, thanks for the offer, Ukrainians, but we are interested in your tech? Then somehow Don Jr., through Unusual Machines, gets a hold of Ukrainian drone technology, claims they can duplicate it, merges with another drone maker, and signs this contract. Did Trump say, no thank you, Ukrainians. We'll just do it ourselves. And yeah, we got to merge. We have to learn how to build these drones. We have to bring together entities who could get this done, all Trump backed. And then we'll unveil these down the road sometime, well after this conflict is resolved. Once again, it looks like Don, using the power of the executive office through decisions made by his administration, has not only enriched himself and his family, but cost lives doing it. They cost lives doing it. Instead of going with the Ukrainian drone 7 months ago, which would have saved lives, they decided to wait. We don't want that now. We'll wait and steal it from you and do it ourselves, no matter how long that may take. If you were given a choice, American public, if you were given a choice at the time, do you want to go with this Ukrainian deal, which will make them and us money and protect us should we get into a conflict with Iran again, or don't get the new technology from Ukraine, let Don get rich once again off the backs of that technology after stealing that technology, and do it himself and provide this service to us down the road? It's right there. I'm connecting that dot. Now, Power Us, if you do a little digging, you'll say, okay, Power Us is a drone making manufacturer. They make drones. And Unusual Machines makes drone components. Well, in terms of the anti-drone technology, Unusual Machines has just recently partnered with a Puerto Rico-based company called Red Cat. Red Cat is going to unveil through Unusual Machines a fleet of unmanned aircraft carriers that have autonomous drones and anti-drone and anti-missile technology that they stole from the Ukrainians. flat out. We won't save the lives now on the front end because buying from Ukraine is not bigly and strongly. We'll just steal your technology no matter how long it takes and how many lives are lost in the meantime, and I'll get rich doing it myself. Through my venture capital firm, through my son's security firm, and through a drone component making company that my son has a share of and sits on the board of. We'll just go ahead and make all that money. Not really concerned at how many lives are lost in the meantime, because our current drone technology is lacking and lagging behind and in short supply. We could have been the best in the market well before this conflict. Instead, we're going to get Don Jr.'s product after the lives are lost. You want to talk about a threat to national security? You know, they're out here about to sign an executive order claiming that Anthropic AI is a threat to national security because it's woke. He's about to sign an executive order to force all of our governmental apparatus to disengage with Claude AI, the best AI on the market, because their owner and CEO, Dario Amati, is woke and won't let them surveil civilians and won't let them carry out automated lethal strikes, won't let them use their AI to unseat the leaders of sovereign nations. You know, that kind of pushback, that kind of woke. And by the way, Anthropic is suing them. Oh, yeah, suing them. Anthropic is suing them because Pete Hegseth called them a supply chain risk and a threat to national security, suing them. And you know what's really crazy is this is creating a huge rift in Silicon Valley. I told you that OpenAI and Google, they wanted to compete for Anthropic's contracts with the government once Anthropic has been, kicked out and deemed a threat. That will create a vacuum, and somebody will need to pick up those contracts, those AI contracts. Google, OpenAI, Grok, they're all in competition for that honor. Well, when this lawsuit was filed, a number of chief scientists in the AI fields within OpenAI and Google came out and said, Dario's right. They should be sued. We can't allow the government to do that. So while they're jockeying for Anthropic's position, they are recognizing that Anthropic is on the right side of this argument. That is how detrimental to national security Pete Hegseth and Trump actually are. I'm going to be back for a very short overtime. I'll be right back.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett breaks things because someone has to.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared
Well, I think
for
you could
this war
say
to
it
last
both.
for?
It's the beginning. It's the beginning of building a new country, but they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar, they have no telecommunications, and they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further. But
and we're going to go further. But it's a tremendous success now. We pretty much won. Which is why they're going to Congress to ask for a supplementary budget. Tens of billions of dollars they're expected to ask Congress to continue this war. What are you going to need tens of billions of dollars for if we've already won it, Don? Why would we need to go further if we've already won it? We spent $5.6 billion just in the first 2 days on munitions. Just the first 2 days. The numbers are rolling in on the rest of it, but just the first 2 days we spent $5.6 billion. $5.6 billion. Now here's the thing. And this I'm going to be honest. Like I am about, Democratic lawmakers' decision-making when it's good and when it's not good. I have been honest about it. Some of you pushed back, and that's fine. I love the discussion. Convince me I'm wrong. I love the discussion, but I'm going to be honest about this as well. It is expected that Democrats will not go along with the supplementary spending on this war. We are expecting pushback from the Democrats on this. Not going to get on board. Okay. That's dirty pool. And terrible optics. Terrible optics. The Democrats have to understand that if they don't get along, if they don't go along with this, it's going to happen anyway. Even if the Republicans didn't go along with it and none of the spending was given to them, none of it, none of the billions was given, this would still happen. We would not just pull out and say, hell, Congress just ended it. They just ended it by not giving us extra money. Sorry, allies. You're going to keep getting struck in retaliation, but we're out of here because, Chuck Schumer, the Democrats, and Hakeem Jeffries, they made it too tough. We can't get this done. No, it's going to happen no matter what. Whether you push back, but if you do push back, if you don't get along with the spending, you are handing the Republicans a golden talking point. The Democrats hate our troops. We are not going to pull out if we don't get this spending. It's not going to happen. We are going to continue doing what we're doing. It will just be without the extra cash to what? Feed, give ammunition to, protect in some way our U.S. soldiers. Let's assume that they use the money they're given from Congress to those ends, to make their war more efficient, more effective. The more effective and efficient our war is, the safer our service members will be. That's common sense. You don't go along with some of this spending, Democrats, you're going to be handing them a golden talking point. I understand why you would do such a thing. I get it. You wanted war power resolutions. The Republicans didn't allow it. You wanted to curtail this president's aggression time and time again, and it's failed every time. You have very few options to exert your authority, and you see this as one of them. I don't love it. I don't love it. And we are very murky on how long this could last, what the objectives really are. We're murky on all of it because our president is murky on all of it, giving us very little definitives and timetables to go on. And man, did he go on in this press conference I'm playing. Good Lord, he said a lot of things. And I just grabbed some of them. Let's hear more from our president.
But while we're doing all of these things, we're achieving major strides toward completing our military objective. And some people could say they're pretty well complete. We've wiped every single force in Iran out very completely. Most of Iran's naval power has been sunk. It's on the bottom of the sea. It's almost 50 ships. I was just notified it's 51 ships. I didn't know they had that many. Didn't last very long.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's very low energy there. He's very low energy, doesn't know what he's talking about. You remember I detailed to you, they were discussing a special operations force to go into Iran and seize the 450 kilograms of 60+% enriched uranium. Seize it, take it, or bring along a IAEA expert and dilute the uranium on the spot. Very cool spy stuff. Very cool special operations stuff. Scott and I were going through, like, we were doing casting for the movie, deciding who would have to play the scientist. Would it be one of the old, experienced, grizzled scientists who's seen it all? Or would you go with the hot, young, genius, hotshot scientist who's sent in and learned weapons training? And which would you go with? And who would you get for mission commander and all sorts of stuff? We were casting it. It writes itself. But I said this would give them a couple talking points immediately. The talking point of mission accomplished. We got the uranium. We can pull out now. And they would use that talking point if they needed to pull out now for whatever reason. Or they could give us the talking point, it failed, wasn't effective. And now, because our experts tell us that if they were to weaponize this uranium they already have, they could have a nuclear missile within 2 weeks, is what their administration experts had been telling Don. 2 weeks, if they decide. 2 weeks. Well, Don may be setting up that talking point as we speak.
The B-2 bombers, which took out their nuclear capability, and they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And they would have used it long before this press conference. And we might have had a much different press conference if we had a press conference at all. But it's been amazing. The military success that we've had is truly unprecedented.
Get ready, because if we start to go forward and ramping up for boots on the ground, that is going to be the talking point. I promise you. Right here on Brett Breaks Things, you're going to hear everybody talking about, we got to get this done in 2 weeks now. We have to go boots on the ground. We have to invade because we've got 2 weeks before they nuke all of our allies in the Middle East. He's setting it up. We sent our special forces in there to grab that uranium. Now they know we want to get our hands on it. They failed. They've still got the uranium. They failed, and now the jig is up. And now we've got 2 weeks. We got to do something drastic. We're sending in the troops. He's setting it up. He spoke on something else, too, by the way. Leading up to this press conference, this guy had the temerity to suggest, in relation to the story that it looks like, blew up a elementary school that was next to an IRGC naval headquarters, it looks like we did it. It looks like our missiles hit an elementary school, killing 175 children. There are investigations underway, but it looks like that's what happened. Through a lack of intelligence. I told you the story. We may have gone on satellite imagery from 2013 or 2015 when that school was still part of the headquarters. And then a few years later, they marked off that section. They walled it off, separated it from the base, started to build soccer fields and playgrounds and all the things you would see around a school, and made it a school. But apparently we either missed or never had those satellite photos, that little bit of intelligence, so we bombed the school. That's what it looks like. So Don had the temerity to suggest the Iranians stole our Tomahawk missiles and fired upon that school themselves to frame us. That's quite a cost. That's quite a cost for a frame job, 175 dead children. That was what Trump had floated. Iranians got their hands on Tomahawks and fired them on their own children. Well, in this little presser, one brave reporter questioned him about this.
President, you just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report. Yeah.
Yep. He actually floated that. And then he has just, he comes in behind and says, well, I don't know enough about it. You don't know enough about it, but you are comfortable saying that. We know you don't know anything, Don, but you're comfortable saying that. Okay. He said a lot of things at that presser. He mentioned the supreme leadership ascension of Mujtaba Khomeini. Okay? He mentioned that because that was not in their plans. They had gone with option B. Remember, we talked about the options. One, supreme leadership ascension by Khomeini or another hardline religious zealot. Two, an uprising, and we go lean on the Iranian regime opposition like Ahmadinejad or the Shah's son. Or three, we strike a deal with the IRGC, allow their military leadership to be intact, allow some of their headquarters and infrastructure to be intact, and then make a deal with them. We went with number two. So we went and we talked to the Kurds, and we went and we struck the leadership of the IRGC. We went and we took out 40-plus members of the religious supreme leadership, right? Looks like we went with B. But Iran decided to go with A, Mujtaba Khomeini, which signals more of the same. More secret nuclear weapon development, more proxy funding, more death, more destruction, more conflict. He spoke to that. He spoke to the possibility of the Iranian people rising up against this Mujtaba regime. He said, we want a system that can lead to many years of peace. And if we can't have that, we might as well get it over with right now. What? He said he was disappointed in the appointment of Mujtaba Khomeini. Wait a second. Did you just threaten everybody? Did you just threaten the Iranian people and Khomeini and the leadership and the IRGC? Just everybody just got threatened. If there's not going to be an uprising, we're just going to get it over with right now. Why don't you just get it over with right now then, Don, and spare further loss of life? What are you talking about? What drastic move to get it over with right now are you talking about? God, you want strong-arm dictatorship. He just threatened everybody in one sentence. What are you talking about? Get it over with right now. And, some of his advisors, they're trying to tell him, you gotta ramp this down. You gotta ramp your rhetoric down. If we go the other way, this could drag on. We could get boots on the ground. The optics on this are terrible. Terrible. He has been briefed on the optics, by the way. Briefed on the optics. Now, I could sit and run through all the polls, but overall, Reuters, ABC, NBC, CNN, all the big polls, Ipsos, all the big polls, I'll give you the average. 39% of Americans approve this war in Iran. 51% disapprove. Some polls have it all the way up to 59% disapprove. He knows the polls. His advisors are begging him to not hint at this going longer. It's getting more and more unpopular. With every dead soldier, with every spike in gas prices, it gets more unpopular. So he talks about possibly what a win could look like. He said the war might be over soon. We could go farther. We're going to go farther. You saw that. And then in private, after that comment, according to people anonymous within the administration, he immediately began devising a plan to murder Mujtaba Khomeini. So that is what a win for Trump could look like. That could be another backdoor exit out of this for Trump. Look, we did it. We killed Ali Khamenei. We killed Mujtaba Khomeini. That's it. The supreme leadership is done. An uprising is going to come right after this. The IRGC has been dismantled. Its military leadership is dead. We're done here. Let's let the people take it from here. That could be an exit strategy for him. Murder Mujtaba Khomeini. And I'm not going to cry for him, considering he's signaling that he will be more hardline and oppressive than his father. You wanted it, you got it. You want to be the supreme leader, the crosshairs are firmly on your forehead, Mujtaba. Have fun with that. You could be Don's exit out of this little mess. And he said one final thing that I want to talk about at that presser. And I just want to circle back to this. Cuba, man, you are on notice, Cuba. You knew the writing was on the wall when they took out Maduro. They stopped all the flow of oil from Venezuela to Cuba. Just a few months ago, Trump signed an executive order saying that anybody who supplies Cuba with oil or anything else, we're going to sanction you and we're going to tariff you. That's when the desperation for Cuba really accelerated with that executive order. And now he's out here talking about Cuba again.
He's dealing, and it may be a friendly takeover. It may not be a friendly takeover. It wouldn't matter because they're down to, as they say, fumes. They have no energy. They have no money. They're in deep trouble on a humanitarian basis.
They are in very deep trouble on a humanitarian basis. That was true. It is a humanitarian crisis. They have been hit with blackouts just for months and months. They've been dealing with severe blackouts since that executive order, fuel shortages, big time crisis. Big time crisis. Now, he said friendly or unfriendly. Well, we know what unfriendly looks like. We saw this show. We just watched this show play out in Venezuela. We know what an unfriendly change looks like. This friendly change, that would definitely require the U.S. government and the Cuban officials to be talking, right? At least talking. Well, Cuba's government had said no. They haven't contacted us at all. They aren't talking to us at all. So it looks like it'll just be unfriendly without any type of dialogue. Not even giving them a chance to get on board. But yeah, he's right about the humanitarian crisis. I mean, when you look at some of the reports about this fuel shortage, I mean, hospitals, they absolutely cannot function. Ambulances don't have fuel. I mean, it's scary, scary stuff. It's really scary stuff. So Cuba's being squeezed, and it's not even being given a chance to fold under the pressure. You usually squeeze someone and pressure someone like this so they, come and bend the knee and, adhere to your demands. At least give them a chance to meet your demands, whatever they should be. Trump's government not even talking to him. You better get ready for that unfriendly change he's talking about, Cuba. We'll be back tomorrow.